Hey, what's going on out there, YouTube family? This is Sammy Leggett here representing Team JVS. I'm back here again for another movie review. The name of this movie is called The Emperor's Sword. Now, I was fortunate enough to be able to get this early and watch it and review it, and I'm going to break it down for you guys really quick. So just for a brief synopsis. During the chaotic rule of Qin Huang ruled China, his Qin Dynasty is about to be usurped by Zhao Gao, which is one of the ministers trying to overthrow the emperor because, believe it or not, the situation is you got two different swords that were forged from a war, and the representation of both swords in hand is the person that could basically conquer the world. But one is located in a specific location at a temple location, and the other one is with the dynasty. And now Zhao wants it. So for the meantime, the heroes came together and guarded the Ding Qin sword as a hopes to keep stabilization. But of course, that is not what happens, and it goes awry. And so the very last person that has it at this point is Ming's daughter. She's the last of her line, and she's the only one that has responsibility to be able to protect and serve her country through sacrificing her livelihood to keep the sword out of the wrong hands. So for me, I thought it was really interesting. Initially, when I first watched it, I kind of was like, a little thrown off of it, but it goes into my negatives. I don't want to go harping on that too much just yet. The thing that I appreciated is the second and third act gets really compelling because you start to have certain characters that you start to like the character Hangzhou, like the archer, like he's just really proficient, really young, and he connects with Ming very early on. And you find out, like his aunt and his different family members, like they were part of the Seven Gentlemen. Seven Gentlemen are some of the best that were part of the war. But at this point, they've kind of retired into, seclusion, as it were, because they kind of just wanted to be in a place of peace. And you got characters that, like, say, Jillian, for instance. Jillian is basically a Ronin. Like, he's probably one of the most proficient, and his brother, who's Commander Tyne, is working directly with Zhao. And so there's a conflict of interest right there because he has loyalty to his family, but at the same time, he has loyalty to the person he's serving. And so I think that side of it, like, once I got an understanding of who Commander Tyne was and his correlation with everybody else and his connection with the Seven Gentlemen, it started to get really compelling. That was the part that I was like, okay, cool. Like, now I have something to kind of gravitate towards emotionally, as well as all the different lives that are being lost. Now, one of the things I'll say about this is there's a lot of death. Like, there's deaths of, like, children. There's deaths of, like, genocidal level deaths. And I was really surprised. I mean, it's not like a gore fest, but it is pretty blatant, like, what's happening throughout the entirety of the film. Like, there's a lot of lives being lost over too simplest of things, and a big part of it is ego and priority and betrayal and a lot of different things that, from a customary standpoint, I understand it, but tangibly at first, these are where I'm going to go into the negative. So the beginning of it goes and blows through so fast, so you never really get to see the Seven Gentlemen in the element, like, as, like, their most proficient sides. Like, you don't get to see them. You see this interesting little battle, but you don't really get the correlation until you actually get to see them later on. And I think that if you looked at, Seven Deadly Sins, for instance, the benefit that you could really get from that would be like, wow, this is a dope flashback of who this person used to be. There's no flashbacks at all. You only get that certain amount of time. And then as that goes and stretches forward, it proceeds to show, like, the betrayal that's kind of happening and the deaths of, like, the Mings and, the daughter that goes and flees and she gets some help from somebody else, and it just kind of goes on this roller coaster ride, kind of like Lord of the Rings kind of situation. I thought that from the beginning, the first 10 minutes to me was very lacking. It kind of, like, took me out, and even I went back and rewatched it all over again. I felt like it was really boring and it didn't have anything for me to connect to. And it just kind of went through so quickly that I was kind of, like, left out of it. But by the time, after about, like, 30 minutes in, and you start to make connections, I think it started to work. Now, the other thing is they use a lot of, like, from a CG standpoint, like a lot of heavy CG and like slow motion in the very beginning that doesn't work either. So even like the fight scenes didn't work for me. But I think also the camera angles, like there was a fight scene that happened really early on with the character Jillian, and I was like, the camera's just all over the place and I don't see what's really happening versus the fight that happens with him. A couple of the fights happened with him very later on that was so good. And I think the proper uses of slow motion, and it just, I don't know, like the first 30 minutes or first 20 minutes, I think kind of held the movie back a little bit, kind of crippled it in certain sections. And then also some of the drama side of it. There was some melodrama, there's some melodramatic comedy that didn't work for certain characters. I don't want to talk about it. It's in a hotel, that's all I'm saying. But everything else, I think it kind of kept up an interesting pace. It kept me intrigued to see where I was going to go, but it was relentless in terms of like the brutality of the situation and the amount of deaths that were actually happening. I think there was some really decent action sequences. I think I was looking for a little bit more along the action side, but I think it was serviceable enough that I'd recommend it to those fans of this classification of genre, as well as, you know, people that are just interested in see how like they are telling a story from a historic standpoint. I would rest this at a 6 or 6.5 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think of the Emperor's Swords. I apologize, I got braces in right now. And let me know what you guys think. Make sure you leave a like, make sure you comment, and subscribe if you would like to know a little bit more. We've got some things coming up down the pipeline. We've got some really interesting reviews coming up, got some giveaways coming up, and we thank you so much to Well USA for giving us the opportunity to be able to cover the Emperor's Sword. I'll talk to you guys later. Keep it locked. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. Peace, guys.